name is Baris Sarer. I'm a principal at Deloitte Consulting, and I lead our AI services for telecom, media, entertainment, and technology industry, both in the US and globally as well. Welcome to the TAM Forum, Enhancing Data Excellence for GenAI, Strategies for Quantity, Quality, and Governance. Well, the title is a mouthful, but the topic is relevant and timely. And we got three distinguished panelists with us to cover this topic. To give you a little bit of background, the last couple of years have been a whirlwind in the world of AI. And now that the technology started maturing, we're seeing a shift from initial fascination with the capabilities and experimentation to a sharp focus on searching for value and finding ways to realize it. And that's what we're going to cover today. Now, our panelists bring a diverse set of perspectives from different parts of telco, whether it's wireless, fiber, OSS, BSS, and they're going to bring some of their strategies and progress to life with some practical examples. So without further ado, I would like to start our panel with a quick round of introductions. Maybe let's start with you, Michael. Tell us a little bit about yourself and your role as it relates to AI.
Awesome. Thank you, Baris. I'm Michael Raj. I lead the AI and data team for network at Verizon. So the way we are organized is there is a consumer organization that we support, network organization that we support, and there's a finance organization as well. So I lead all of the practice related to network. What does that mean? You all know that Verizon focuses very big in terms of our network reliability and makes significant investments in our network. So my team focuses on identifying strategies to optimize our capital investment. How can we be more efficient by leveraging a lot of the data analytics and making models to make sure that we can drive our investment accordingly. I also have a team that focuses on competitive intelligence. What are our competitors doing? Where are they investing? How are they expanding? What are some areas where we need to put more focus on? The other area that I lead at Verizon is also our network planning organization. Basically, when you think about all the investments that we make, we need to look at radio propagation, the art of design, and make sure that we can invest and have the tools that are in place to measure the right variables. So I have a team that focuses on that as well. I've been at Verizon for about 12 years, really excited. Definitely have been called into a lot more leadership meetings the last 2 years, especially the last year, I would say thanks to OpenAI for all the push. We are all here, so we're super excited for the journey, and I'm looking forward to this session.
Thanks, Michael. Before moving to Pankaj, I just want to ask one question. When you talk about competitive intelligence, is this about market research or is there a technical element?
Absolutely, both aspects of it. So, the fun of leading the network team is it's a shared asset, and we also understand churn. When you talk about our consumer teams, they may not understand network KPIs. We have the fun of understanding both sides of the equation. So we look at all factors such as churn, where customers are moving, and what is the path of customers. Also, where does our competitors build their cell sites? What are the areas? Where are some hotspots that are developing? Where is customer sentiment showing that they're developing into hotspots? So both aspects of it.
It's really competitive network intelligence.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Pankaj.
I'm Pankaj Vaish, the Chief Operating Officer for Global Operations and the part of the executive team at Tecnotree. I've been in Tecnotree for about 2 years through an acquisition which they acquired called Cognitive Scale. Before joining Tecnotree, I built Cognitive Scale based out of India in 2014. 2014 to 2022, when we got acquired by Tecnotree, we built an AI platform end-to-end, which really provides all the assets for data ingestion all the way across. If you look at talking about Tecnotree is a 46-year-old privately listed company in Helsinki, NASDAQ, in Finland. It started their operations to providing pretty much value-added services, the MMS in the Nordic region, and then expanded into the BSS space. In 2018 is when they transformed themselves into the digital space. What they did was they adopted the TM Forum ODI compliance framework and built from ground up the entire stack. right from billing, charging, you name it, CRMs, everything put together. It's completely, you can say, microservices driven, API conformant. So, and as part of the acquisition of Cognitive Scale, we started integrating the AI components into the entire stack. Before Tecnotree, before Cognitive Scale, overall I have about 38 years of experience. I worked for Unisys for 10 years in the US, moved back to India, but still worked for Pero Systems in Dallas for 15 years. Then I did a couple of startups. My first startup was in the healthcare space, where we did mobile health, virtual health, and e-health products and services. We also built our first cloud-based hospital management system, which we took to African countries and Southeast Asia and the Middle East. And that is where Cognitive Scale really came into the picture, where I moved into the AI space. So in terms of how we have, built this thing, because of the ingestion of Cognitive Scale coming into Tecnotree, it gave us a great platform to really move ahead in the overall ingestion of AI and GenAI. I'll talk more about it.
We'll talk about that more.
But glad to be here and share some of the experiences of how we have taken this journey forward, and willing to learn from the experience in these 2 days. Thank you.
Dave?
David Sedlock, I'm Chief Data Officer at Zayo Group out of Denver, Boulder, Colorado. A lot of people don't know who we are. We're the largest independent fiber company in the U.S. A lot of the folks that are attending this conference today are our customers. Probably high 90% business to business. We grew out of 49 acquisitions over a 17-year period. Went public, went private. We're back private now. I have the global responsibility for all data, AI, and analytics across the globe for Zayo. I have a data engineering function, data architecture, business intelligence, AI, data science capabilities, and an overall data platform as well. Preceding this, I'm kind of coming back home. I spent a good long tenure at AT&T. I helped 5 of us started the big data group back in 2013. I ran the all operational CEO functions of the big data group, which then transformed into what is now today the Chief Data Office, Andy Marcus, who spoke first keynote. So I got an opportunity to talk about a lot of our shared stories earlier yesterday. I spent time with them and today too, so I'm looking forward to the conversations.
Awesome. Well, let's start with our first question then. Maybe starting with you, Michael. What is your AI ambition for Verizon, specifically in the area that you operate in? How are you integrating that into your corporate strategies and operations? And maybe some of the challenges and real-life examples of where you're seeing good progress.
Yeah, absolutely. So our big vision, our ambition here is to industrialize AI across all of the business units. There's a lot of use case-based approach that we are working with the different business units. In this particular example, if I kind of double-click on the network organization, you all know that from a network perspective, you can think about it in 3 ways, our planning, our engineering, and our operations. So then we try to look at it from each of this, as the speakers this morning highlighted, this is not new, right? AI has been in place. All of this attention and focus is obviously getting even more, but AI, traditional AI, what is being called now as traditional AI, has always been in place. So when we look at planning as an example, the thought process there is some areas such as capital efficiency, all the dollars that the teams have invested in, what is the return on that invested capital? Are they in the right areas? What sort of focus we want to do? Energy and other forecasting is another big use case as well. You can imagine as we build more and more, the amount of energy it consumes continues to increase, and then local weather patterns are also changing even more dramatically. It is quite difficult to bring all of that into perspective as you do the planning, but it's really important. Otherwise, it could come as a surprise to your CFO. So those aspects associated with planning are key in the first part. As it relates to engineering, the one piece that I wanted to probably double-click and highlight is companies like Verizon, we've been really good at looking at customers from the lens of network. Whenever you talk about customer, we typically always look at it from the lens of network. We don't do a lot initially in terms of looking at it from the customer perspective. So as it relates to engineering, our teams have done a lot of work in the last 2 years, focusing on measuring the experience of the customers. How do customers perceive us? What are some of the challenges that we think, as customers are facing? What sort of trend do we see in customers' experience as they travel, as they take us, as they rely on us? When they go to different places. So that's been a very, very big focus for us as it relates to engineering. In terms of operations, the pieces that I wanted to highlight are a lot of GenAI related use cases. You all, I'm sure, have pages and pages of KPIs. In some cases, you may have printed booklets that you've used or may continue to use. Our operations teams, when they need to go for some of these KPIs, still have to go through a manual process. When they go through an RCA, they need to still go through. So our thought process as it relates to operations is think about an infobot plus a co-pilot-based approach. How do we get this information for them at the right time, but at the same time, do more RCA that they could leverage instead of spending their time to try and pull these KPI from different pieces. And the last part I'll highlight there is typically it is important for us to look at this as a cluster. That way we can solve these solutions at a cluster level versus looking at it individually. I know the last part of your question was focused on challenge. The one piece that I wanted to highlight is because, our network teams, we work so closely with them. Our network teams build a lot of cell sites and activate them. It's so, they look at it from the quantity perspective. It's so connected to them. So when we take an ML model to them and look at it and say, this is the recommendation, one of the challenges that we see is the ability for us to make sure that explainability of how the ML model performs. Why did the model recommend this versus this? Why did the model put this customer in decile 10 versus decile 2? It can be done, but when you have to explain it to a lot of people, it gets quite challenging, at some point, because we are still in that phase of gaining more and more confidence, right? So that would be one thing that I would put as a challenge. And as we get more and more connected, I'm sure we can overcome that.
Want to double click on that a little bit. You're actually highlighting a more universal problem of adoption, maybe. Yep. You're introducing a net new capability based on a technology that's still maturing.
Right.
And then you have fairly tenured engineers who've been doing various types of operational work for a long period of time.
Yes.
What are some of the ways you're trying to drive adoption? Because it's one thing for the model to predict something. It's another thing for people to actually accept it and integrate that into their day-to-day workflows.
Absolutely. The biggest piece I would say, that can help with regard to adoption is being able to bring new information that the teams may not have leveraged in the past. I'll give a simple example, right? Everybody knows, at least our network teams have very good understanding of network performance, being able to optimize against network performance, but the ability to connect what I said earlier related to competitive intelligence and network performance, the ability to connect how our customers are churning or what sort of influence does network have in terms of how customers are churning, what sizing can we do, what are some of the areas that we can prioritize. So when our teams are able to bring these kinds of problems, which are real problems for our network teams, then you get to answer some of the questions that they've had in the past, or in many cases, some questions that they are not thinking about yet. So in my mind, that's how we are driving adoption. How is it that we are able to give new information, then it becomes a cycle. And I'm very confident that over a period of time, the credibility that we have built with them can also be applied in the ML models that we are bringing to them.
And are you in a conscious effort to actually train your folks on AI capabilities and help them appreciate what goes into those models and how those results are produced?
Yes, definitely. At Verizon, our technology leadership team initially when all of this cycle was happening, they had a company-wide training initially for the IT employees, and then they expanded it to other employees, as Cameron highlighted this morning in the keynote. So we are definitely on the journey, but more importantly, I truly believe that every project, every data product that we are rolling out, every model that we are building, the more and more connectivity that we are doing with individual teams, the more and more that we gain the credibility. And it's, in my mind, a learning that both of us are doing together as we go through this journey.
There's an element of training, but ultimately it's going to come down to involving all these key stakeholders.
Absolutely,
in the process,
100%.
And you build together.
And the other secret I would say is some employees that have been trained in this going back to the network rotations, going back to this. So in my mind, they are evangelists in the areas that they are. And obviously, a lot of the tasks in terms of the outputs that we give, I'm really hoping will become easier as they become back in the network, because they are now are kind of like supporters, right? So that's one other piece as well. Like, how can we make sure that people who are trained, who are working with us, can actually be planted back in the business unit so that they can be strong supporters?
Awesome. Pankaj, maybe let me ask the same question.
I'll give a completely different flavor, because on the BSS side, one thing that we had the advantage of because of the acquisition that we did was we already got a platform that had along with the teams, which had a very robust set of ML ops, data ops already integrated to the platform. The platform had, scalable, cloud-native capabilities to really launch enterprise-scale applications. And because it was industry agnostic, all we had to do was take that and bring it into the telecom area, right? So with that, let me give you, 2 or 3 examples of how we are approaching the strategy about GenAI and AI in general. The first one is we have what we call as the Certify. Certify is our, you can say, a model vulnerability testing module in our platform. You can feed it any model without really the intrinsics of the model. You don't have to expose the model. You just have to give it the input and output. And based on that, it can find out is there a data drift in the model? Does the model is unfair? You can do a whole bunch with a dashboard and everything. That is one. The second one is what we did was we adopted GenAI both for our customer-facing applications as well as internal. Because this platform was there, we were able to do, the first things we did were, let us look at HR ops and our business ops. We took all the data that was available to us, using small language models, overlaying on the large language models, and using RAG and RAG, because the platform already had a graphical database interface, what we call as a profile of one. We were very quickly, almost over 6 to 9 months, bring all our dashboards for businesses where they could query in a chatbot or run it for any decision-making decisions that they usually have to go into the dashboard, click up, a lot of format, a lot of templatized thing to get to their answer. Now can do it through voice or through just a command. Every employee in the organization, based on their location, we are spread across 70 countries in terms of where we service our customer base. They can ask any question on the policies, their leave, the holidays, any general about the business unit they are working on, and they will get, answers for that. So that really worked really well in terms of application of our GenAI. We are taking the GenAI to our customers by giving them into the BSS space as well, right? So that was the second thing. The third thing where I would take an example of how we integrated our, you can say, our campaign management and brought GenAI into it. So our campaign management system really uses AI at the back end to be able to intelligently decide on the cohorts of how you want to apply the marketing campaign for. It has a feedback loop whereby you don't have to really go into production with your campaign. The system allows you to run it in the back end, very less compute, hardly any cost, get the results back, have business unit owners and the SMEs look at the results, kind of in a simulated manner. Tweak the models at the back end till you are satisfied that this is the right cohort, the right indexes, to launch the campaign, and then you really launch it. It's been really effective, and we have already started implementing it in a few opcos, and it's ready to go. On the on the data excellence side, I have just coined this. The data has to be perfect, right? And perfect is really an acronym which I remember as our governance model for how to apply, cleanse, and use the data. P is basically the data that you have or whatever you do has to protect your privacy, right? Perfect. E is that it should be ethical. It should be based on ethical principles of your organization, of your customers, of the region you are working in. R, PER. R is really, it has to be robust. It should not have any vulnerabilities when you are launching your data governance or your GenAI and all that stuff. F is it should be fair without the bias. E, it should be explainable. You have to have data which has a lineage so they can go all the way back to find out the actual source, which should be single source of truth, and it should not be mingled with others. You should not get confused over there. R is really the responsiveness or the E is E is explainable. C is it has to be compliant to your local regulations, whether they are legal or your regional. And T is it should be transparent. So if you follow this perfect, which is embedded in our assets, you are actually able to do great data excellence in terms of running your systems and providing output to your customers. In terms of the challenges, I think the challenges are more in terms of getting the clients to understand and educate them the value that GenAI can bring or AI can bring. They think it's a magic wand, right? You give a bunch of data and magic will happen. At the back end, obviously, we have solved that problem by having our own simulated or synthetic data generator, part of the platform. So if the customer gives you, say, they have a problem of how do I detect bad debt in my subscriber base? How do I predict that this particular prepaid or postpaid will not be paying? They will give you, say, 1,000 records. Using those 1,000 records, analyzing it, I can have my synthetic data generator produce 2 million records exactly with the same characteristics and attributes of the sample data, free of bias, just using the perfect rule, and then run it through the models to train them and deploy it. That, again, has been very successful.
Thanks, Pankaj. I think you've done a great job in summarizing everything in a single word. Perfect. Appreciate that. Dave, I want to move on to you in the same question about vision, but I know that you have a slightly different take on before you achieve AI, you need to make sure that AI readiness is in place.
Yeah.
So maybe you can talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, sure. So when I alluded to Zayo grew up over 17 years of 49 acquisitions. And if we had a slide, I would slide in my other presentation. Basically, it said we did not have structured discipline around our data, technology, and our processes. That's kind of weak. We had zero. We didn't have a strategy around it. So we didn't have common architectural standards. We didn't have a data strategy or technology strategy. For the most part, everything was all in one application. So early on when I got to Zayo a year and a half ago, everybody was asking me around what's our AI GenAI strategy. And I said, well, the strategy is we're not going to have a strategy until we build the foundational capabilities that we can create gold data sets, that we can point our partners' capabilities and technology back to those data sets, then we can extract value. And then we also need a value realization model established so that we can take full advantage of that when we get to that point. So I quickly got coined as Mr. No for AI around Zayo. It wasn't no, it's just we're not ready for it yet. And if you try to put AI on top of poor data or low quality data, it's going to cause even more challenges than you already have. So as we went through it, you can't just make those comments and then do nothing about it. You actually have to do something about it. So a few things I'll kind of rattle through that we did. One, again, we didn't have an enterprise data model. We didn't have anything around the integration layer, things of that nature. So we adopted the TM Form enterprise data model carte blanche, said that's what we're using. Integration APIs, we're using that. ETOM SID model, we're using that for establishing our data libraries, which is one of our data products. So we've wholeheartedly adopted that and just go, if we're not having one, we're going to use industry standards. So let's go do that. And then we said we had other core capabilities that we established. For example, we identified business data stewards that were responsible for identifying critical data elements, owning them, defining them, hydrating them, maintaining them, and then making sure that they're accurately and timely and in a timely fashion complete those and for whatever order it may be or whatever the process is. From that, we then established a data platform with standard ingestion processes and controls. So these are all really basic stuff, but we didn't have them when we had to get to this point. Then we established the data products, and there's really three key data products that we established. One, I already mentioned, critical data elements. We identified 819 critical data elements across our entire life cycle, a journey of a customer, and we can focus on 819 things. We can't focus on 1 million items. So bring it down to what the most critical things are. I mentioned data libraries. We established data libraries in the ETOM SID models, the 8 categories, and all of our data lines up to those libraries. And then within those libraries, we say, what are the use cases that we want to look at to support the business? For example, everything about network goes into a business-ready data set. We talk with the business, the data stewards, they tell us how they use the data. We create that logic, business logic and rules, and create that BRD. That becomes a gold data set. So as soon as we can establish that gold data set, then that's the trigger that we then can point data science to, AI, ML, generative AI against it. And then corresponding with that is it really starts up front when we do this, is we profile all of our source systems and pull all the technical metadata from them. From that, we create data lineage where all the data flows in between the applications. And then we can put quality controls against all those and know exactly where the data breaks down. And this one's extremely important moving forward because it's not that one-time pull. It's constantly reprofiling. So as things change in your environment, then it constantly keeps that lineage and footprint maintained. And I call that the oxygen of AI. It's constantly updating that as you're profiling and doing those things. And then the last piece that we focus on, I had to do this in other places that I've been. I can't go say that because that's going to take like 2 or 3 years to go build and just give me a whole bunch of money and then I'll come back to you in 3 years. You can't do that in our world anymore. So I established what's called data quick strikes. So the data quick strikes is really in two reasons. One, it's how do I look at the most challenging problems in our business that we're having, like some of ours, we're just getting service orders done, churn, revenue assurance, things of that nature. What are those biggest problems we have? And I had a small group dedicated 4 people's capacity to say, let's go solve the problems for the business. It may not be elegant, it may not be perfect, but we're going to go drive increased revenue, decrease costs and operational efficiency on our network that we're talking about. And we focused around data solutions for that. Some of that created technical debt, but for example, if I can go like we did, we focused on churn. And we, in 12-month period, had saved the company tens of millions of dollars. Just focus on the ML predictive model on churn and putting use cases in that says, we believe these top 10 customers are going to churn off with these product lines. It was tens of millions of dollars in less than a year to do that. Well, it flipped my group from a cost center to a profit center, right? And it also creates a mechanism, a flywheel. So as you start creating those gold data sets and then truly leveraging the capabilities of our core technology partners, then now that's a value realization engine that we've already spun up and established. And we can start driving true value, direct savings back to the business. And that's something that's, it's gone a long way because I have to every month go up to our board of directors and tell them what we're doing, how we're doing, what we're working on. And when you have money people and they're seeing dollars of return, not always cash going out, it helps when you have to ask for a challenge. We have challenges because we're all going to have challenges when you have those unexpected challenges to go do that.
Dave, I really like that thoughtful approach on one side, doing all the plumbing and laying all the groundwork that you can build your AI capabilities on, while kind of releasing the pressure a little bit by showing quick success with your quick data strikes. Is that
Quick strikes, yeah.
data quick strikes? I really think that's a nice strategy because I can imagine there was a lot of pressure to say, hey,
Yeah.
where's the progress? Where's the money? Where's the return on investment?
And yeah, in fact, what they told me to stop talking about all the plumbing. They just go like, you got it, keep doing it. Let us know if you have any problems, and just keep printing the money while you're doing it. All right,
Right.
that's a good thing. Short answer is there actually is some capabilities out there. So there's two types of quality we're looking at. One is just once it gets into my universe, meaning coming from the source system, I ingest it, making sure that nothing happens between the time that I get it and the time that I, present it in whatever form. So those are real blocking and tackling stuff. Okay. Right. The other one is really based upon the profiling of all the source systems. Right. So I go on, if I have a profile of what all the tables, all the fields in our applications, there's multiple tools out there that do this, some better than others, but you get that comprehensive view. So you get that technical metadata, and it creates a lineage of how data flows through the different applications, field to field, table to table. So within those same tools, we chose global IDs to do this. They're very good at the profiling. They also, you can have quality audits and say, here's the rules. They call them audits, the rules that if something breaks, you can literally follow it directly, find in the table, in the field where it broke. So you know where it came from because you have a data lineage, and then you identify, and at a bare minimum, you can go directly that field in that table and go, it broke right here, and the last place it came from was right here. So you know something happened in between that. So what you also, that at least point towards it. The other thing that you have is that we started building in the capability with ServiceNow, where we can automatically issue a ticket, pop it into ServiceNow, route to the right person that's in their role and responsibility to go take a look at that in the table and column before it broke and say, wait a second, you passed it from here to here, it broke. Let's go take action. Now, it's not going to solve everything. You still have to have somebody, manual look at that. But then you can say, well, what's causing that? And then you can fix that problem so it doesn't happen again.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think even though when I speak about AI models, the one important thing that we all need to understand is this was a question that came up earlier in another session. The core models have to continuously evolve and get better and better. And that is only possible by effective use of data analytics, So we have to constantly identify what are like new signals, what are new, and that's where sticking to the 3GPP standards, absolutely, that is part of our team. When we say, I think analytics has expanded, right? Like when we say analytics now or AI now, people are starting to use it interchangeably. Our models, as an example, like the churn models or customer experience models, constantly, the focus is to get better and better and better. And that can only be done by, some folks or a few folks or a dedicated team that is looking at what are the new signals that they are able to pick up, which will ultimately turn into features that can become, make the model better. So 100% that, we're totally, leveraging the 3GPP there.
All right. Well, thank you. I know there were some other questions, but we're going to have to wrap now. Thanks so much for our panelists who brought a lot of diverse perspectives, and with some real life examples, you brought them to life. Appreciate it. And